I love everything about my wife. But one day, while she was sitting in the car, she accidentally, let me tell you exactly how everything fell apart. It was an ordinary Thursday, the kind of day where nothing feels off and you move through it like a machine, wake up, shower, coffee, work. But life has a way of making sure you never get too comfortable. I was supposed to meet Ashley for lunch. We didn't do that often, but I had a break in my schedule, and I texted her on a whim. She didn't answer right away, which was normal, but when she finally responded, she said she was out running errands. A simple, harmless excuse. But then I saw her car. Not near any grocery store or pharmacy. It was sitting in a parking lot near a small diner. One I knew she never liked. And she was inside. Not alone. There was a man sitting across from her. They were leaning in close. Too close. I parked at a distance, my pulse already hammering before my brain could process anything. She laughed at something he said, her hand brushing his across the table. He was grinning like a man who knew he had already won. I should have stormed inside. I should have flipped the table, demanded answers. But I didn't. I sat there, frozen, watching as she twirled a strand of hair around her finger. A habit she had when she was flirting. I needed proof. Real proof. So I waited. 30 minutes later, they left together. I followed, keeping my distance as her car pulled into a park near the lake. I watched from behind a row of trees as they sat in her car. Talking. Talking turned into something more. A touch on the arm. A hand on his knee. Then, in one smooth motion, he leaned in and she let him. A kiss. Not a short one. Not a mistake. A deep, lingering, knowing kiss. And then she accidentally dropped her phone between the seats. She pulled back, flustered, laughing as she fished for it. He said something, and she playfully smacked his arm. That's when I realized, this wasn't new. This wasn't a one-time thing. There was comfort in the way they moved together, a familiarity that stabbed straight through my ribs. I could have confronted her right then, but I didn't. I walked away, shaking, my heart slamming against my ribs, because in that moment, I knew my wife wasn't just cheating. She was comfortable in it. I drove. Nowhere in particular, just far enough that I wouldn't do something reckless. My hands felt numb on the steering wheel, my mind replaying every second of what I had just seen. The way she smiled at him. The way she let him kiss her. How natural it all looked. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time thing. Ashley had practice. By the time I made it home, I had already gone through every possible explanation in my head. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe that wasn't even a real kiss. Just a friendly peck. Something meaningless. But the moment she walked through the front door that evening, humming to herself, I knew. She didn't look guilty. She didn't look nervous. She looked happy, like she had spent the day with someone who made her feel alive. "Hey, babe," she called, tossing her keys onto the counter. "You get home early?" I stared at her. For a split second, I considered pretending I didn't know, giving myself more time to think. But the image of her lips on his was still burning behind my eyes. "How was your day?" I asked instead, my voice tighter than I intended. She smiled. "Ugh. Exhausting. I ran all over town. Grocery store, post office, you name it." A lie. A casual, effortless lie. I let it sit between us for a second. Then I tilted my head. "Weird. I thought I saw you near Willow's diner." Her entire body reacted before her mouth did. A half-second of stiffness. A flicker of surprise in her eyes. Then she laughed. Laughed. "Oh, yeah, I was over there too. I ran into an old friend from college. We grabbed a coffee, just caught up." "Why? Were you over there?" Every word felt rehearsed. Smooth. Practiced. I could have ended it right there. Said I saw everything. Told her she was a liar. But something made me hold back. I wanted to see how far she would take it. "Who was the friend?" I asked, watching her closely. She hesitated. A fraction of a second too long. Then shrugged. "You don't know him." "Him." Not her. Not a group of people. "Him." My stomach twisted, but I kept my face neutral. "Try me." She grabbed a water bottle from the fridge, twisting off the cap like she wasn't standing in the middle of her own crime scene. "His name's Daniel. We had a few classes together back in the day." Daniel. I had no idea if that was his real name, but I'd find out. I forced a nod, like I believed her. That's cool. So, you just ran into him and decided to get coffee? Yeah, she said easily. Super random, right? Random. That word was rattling around in my skull as she changed the subject, talking about dinner, asking what I wanted to watch on TV. I played along, but inside I was planning. She had no idea I knew, and I was going to use that to my advantage. I barely slept that night. Ashley curled up next to me like she always did, her body warm, familiar. If I hadn't known better, I would have thought everything was normal, that she was still mine, but she wasn't. I lay there staring at the ceiling, her lie replaying in my head. Daniel, old college friend, just coffee. Every word was a carefully placed piece of fiction. She had looked me straight in the eye and lied without a second of hesitation. So I did what any sane man in my position would do. I waited until she was asleep. Then I got up, grabbed her phone from the nightstand, and walked to the bathroom. She never used to have a passcode. Now she did. 4 digits standing between me and the truth. I tried her birthday. Wrong. I tried our anniversary. Wrong. I tried the last 4 digits of her number. Unlocked. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to focus. If she woke up and caught me, I'd lose my chance. I went straight to her messages. No Daniel. No messages from any number that looked unfamiliar. Clever. I checked her recent calls. Nothing suspicious. But then I opened her photo gallery. And there it was. Picture taken in the car today. The selfie. Her smiling. And in the blurred background, him. A man in his 30s, dark hair, clean-shaven, comfortable, confident, like he belonged there. I swallowed hard and scrolled further. More pictures. Nothing scandalous, but enough to tell me everything I needed to know. Shots of her out somewhere, holding a drink, a plate of food. Not with me. A video. Her laughing at something, her phone angled down as if she didn't mean to record. In the background, his voice. I went to her hidden folder. Password protected. My pulse pounded in my ears as I put the phone back and crawled into bed. She stirred slightly, mumbling something incoherent before settling against me again. I stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I would find out exactly who Daniel was. The next morning, Ashley woke up like nothing had happened. She kissed my cheek, stretched her arms, and groggily made her way to the bathroom. I watched her go, my stomach twisting. Lies. Everything about her was lies. I needed to move fast before she realized I was onto her. So while she showered, I grabbed my laptop and started digging. First, I checked her social media. Nothing suspicious. No new male friends. No tagged pictures. If Daniel was real, she had scrubbed him clean from her online presence. So I tried something else. I logged into our phone bill account and pulled up her call logs. That's where I found it. One number. Repeatedly. Late at night. During the day when she told me she was working. Hours of call history over the past 3 months. I copied the number and pasted it into a reverse lookup site. And there he was. Daniel Carter. But not from her college. From her gym. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. She had told me she never really talked to anyone there. That she put in her headphones and zoned out. But this guy, he had her on the phone for hours. He was taking selfies with her. He was in her car. I had to know what she'd say if I pushed her. So when she came back into the room, towel wrapped around her, I played dumb. Hey, I said casually. I was thinking about joining your gym. She froze, just for a second. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but I did. Then she forced a laugh. Babe, you hate the gym. I shrugged. Yeah, but maybe it'd be fun if we went together. She sat on the bed, toweling off her hair. You wouldn't like it. It's small. Kind of boring. Don't you have friends there? Her eyes flicked to mine in the mirror. Not really. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. What about Daniel? Everything stopped. The towel in her hands. The movement of her fingers. Even her breathing hitched for a fraction of a second before she turned. Her expression blank. Who? She said it so naturally I almost questioned myself. Almost. I tilted my head. Daniel Carter. From your gym. She blinked. Then smiled like I had said something adorable. Oh, him. Yeah, we've talked a couple of times. Why? Just curious. I said slowly. You said yesterday you ran into him randomly. But he's not from your college. He's your trainer, right? I watched her carefully. I wanted her to know I was poking holes in her story. Her expression didn't change. She just laughed and shook her head. Babe, he's not my trainer. We just chat sometimes. Why are you suddenly so interested? She was so good at this. I shrugged, playing it off. Just thought it was weird you said he was an old college friend. Another flicker of something in her eyes. And then she did something that almost made me lose it. She reached out and touched my hand. A soft, reassuring squeeze. Like I was the one being paranoid. Like she was just so patient with my silly little questions. I could feel my pulse hammering in my ears. She leaned in, pressing a kiss to my cheek. You don't have to worry, babe. He's just a guy from the gym. That's all. And then she walked off to get dressed like nothing had happened. I stared at her back, my hands clenched into fists. I wasn't just dealing with a liar. I was dealing with a master at it. I needed more. More than just gut feelings and half-truths. More than just a number on a phone bill and a name that didn't add up. I needed something undeniable. Ashley left for the day like usual. Another round of errands and work meetings. I smiled, kissed her cheek, told her I'd see her later. She had no idea I already had a plan in motion. As soon as she was gone, I grabbed my keys and drove straight to her gym. I didn't walk in right away. I parked across the street, watching. The building was smaller than I expected, just a basic fitness center. I waited, watching the entrance, scanning for him. And then, after 20 minutes, he walked out. Daniel, the man who had been stealing my wife behind my back. He was taller than I realized. Athletic, lean, confident in that way some guys just are. He had no idea I was sitting there, watching him laugh with another trainer before he jogged across the lot to his car. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't about to start a fight in the middle of a parking lot. But I was about to make sure he never saw it coming. I followed him, not close enough to be obvious, but just enough to see where he was going. A few turns through the city, then into a quiet neighborhood. He pulled into the driveway of an apartment complex. I parked down the street and waited. 10 minutes later, he came back out, dressed differently, nicer. Like he was meeting someone. He got into his car and drove off. I followed. And that's when I felt my stomach drop. Because 5 minutes later, Ashley's car pulled out of a side street. She was behind him, not next to him, not waiting at his place. She had been parked nearby, like she had been waiting for him to leave. She was careful, deliberate, but she had no idea I was already ahead of her. I followed both of them as they drove out toward the edge of town. A quieter area, less traffic, fewer people. I didn't know where they were going, but I knew it wasn't random. This had been planned. Then I saw it. A small, tucked-away motel. Daniel pulled in first. Ashley pulled in 2 minutes later. She parked on the other side of the lot, like she was trying not to be seen with him. She sat there for a minute, probably checking her phone, making sure the coast was clear. Then she got out and walked straight into room 214. Daniel followed. The door shut behind them. And just like that, my marriage was over. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. Room 214. Ashley. My wife. In there. With him. A million thoughts slammed through my head at once. Storm inside. Bang on the door. Drag her out and make her face me? I could already picture her expression. Shocked. Maybe even annoyed that I dared to ruin her little secret. But I didn't move. Because something inside me, something colder, told me to wait. So I did. I sat there watching. Not just for minutes, for an hour. An hour where she never once came out. Never once hesitated. Whatever was happening in that room, it was routine. This wasn't some reckless, spur-of-the-moment mistake. This was a relationship. And that's when I knew exactly what I needed to do. I grabbed my phone and took pictures. Her car in the parking lot. The motel sign. Room 214. The timestamp. Proof. Cold, irrefutable proof. If she tried to deny it, if she tried to gaslight me, I'd have the truth in my hands. Then I waited longer. At exactly 1 hour and 23 minutes, the door finally opened. Daniel stepped out first. Relaxed. Smirking at something she said. Ashley followed, looking carefree. Adjusting her hair. Slipping on her sunglasses like she wasn't someone's wife. like she wasn't walking out of a cheap motel in the middle of the afternoon with a man who wasn't me. They didn't kiss. They didn't touch. Too careful for that. They just exchanged a few words, and then Daniel walked off to his car. Ashley lingered a second longer, checked her phone, then headed toward hers. I felt my blood turn to ice as my phone buzzed in my lap. Ashley, hey babe, thinking of grabbing groceries. Need anything? I almost laughed. Groceries. Like she hadn't just been screwing another man in a motel room. Like she hadn't spent the last hour betraying me in every possible way. I took a slow, deep breath, steadied my hand, and typed back, "Nah, I'm good. See you at home." Then I watched her drive off, completely unaware that her world was about to burn to the ground. When Ashley walked through the front door that evening, she had the nerve to smile at me, like nothing happened, like she hadn't spent over an hour in a cheap motel with another man. She set down a grocery bag on the counter and kissed my cheek. I let her play the role of the loving wife, watching her carefully, memorizing her every lie. "Busy day?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She sighed dramatically. "You have no idea. I swear the store was packed. Took me forever to get through checkout." I almost choked on my own breath. "Forever? Took you forever?" "Yeah, I bet it did, Ashley. I bet room 214 was a real pain to get out of." She kept talking, casual, effortless, asking about my day. My jaw was clenched so tightly it hurt, but I didn't let it show. Not yet, because I had a plan. I sat at the table, pulled out my phone, and scrolled like I wasn't even listening. Then, as smoothly as I could, I asked, "Oh, by the way, how's Daniel?" She froze. It was half a second, maybe less. A flicker in her expression. A slight shift in her body language. Then she recovered, forcing a little laugh. "Daniel? Why are you so obsessed with this guy?" She grabbed a bottle of water and leaned against the counter, her tone light, dismissive, trying to control the conversation. I shrugged. "I dunno. Just thought it was weird you said he was from college when he's actually your trainer." She took a sip of water, hiding her face behind the bottle. "I told you he's not my trainer. He just works at the gym." Another lie. I tilted my head, studying her. "You sure? Because I actually looked him up today." The air shifted. I saw it happen, the way her shoulders tensed, the way she did the math in her head. She wasn't panicking yet, but she was thinking fast. I could almost hear the gears turning. Then she set down the water bottle and laughed again. Forced this time. "Oh my God. Babe, are you investigating me? What? Did you Google my gym staff or something?" I smiled. "Yeah, something like that." She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Jesus, you're ridiculous. I barely even talked to the guy." That's when I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "Oh yeah? Then why were you with him today?" Silence. Not long, just a beat. A tiny, barely noticeable pause before she scoffed again, shaking her head. "What are you even talking about?" I pulled out my phone. I didn't show her the motel pictures yet. Not yet. Instead, I showed her the call log. Her phone bill. The hours upon hours she spent talking to Daniel Carter over the past 3 months. I watched her face. I saw the way her eyes flicked across the screen, taking it in. But Ashley? She was good. She only hesitated a second before laughing. Laughing. "Are you seriously stalking my call history? Wow. Controlling much?" She crossed her arms, shaking her head like she was disappointed, like I was the problem here. I said nothing. She sighed dramatically. "He's just a friend. We talk sometimes." "God, you're acting like I'm cheating on you or something." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Not yet. Not yet. Just a friend," I repeated, nodding slowly. "All right. Fair enough." She blinked. Clearly, she expected me to push harder. She wanted to fight on her terms. I wasn't going to give her that. Instead, I slid my phone back into my pocket and stood up. "I'm gonna take a shower." Ashley's eyes narrowed slightly, like she was trying to read me, figure out why I had just backed off. But she said nothing as I walked past her. As soon as I was in the bathroom, I locked the door, turned on the water, and took out my phone again. I opened the album with the motel photos. I stared at them, heart pounding, jaw clenched. She was lying, and tomorrow she wouldn't be able to anymore. The next morning I woke up before Ashley. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, my mind calm in a way that almost scared me. There was no more doubt, no more second-guessing, no more maybe I misunderstood. I had everything I needed, and today, she was going to know it. I got out of bed quietly, went downstairs and made coffee. It felt almost ridiculous, doing something so normal while my entire marriage was disintegrating. Ashley came down 20 minutes later, yawning, stretching like she hadn't spent yesterday afternoon in a motel with another man. She smiled when she saw me. "Morning, babe." I took a sip of my coffee. "Morning." She grabbed a mug, poured herself some, completely unaware that this was the last normal morning she'd ever have with me. I let her settle in, let her think everything was fine. Then, when she sat at the table, scrolling through her phone, I spoke. "So," I said casually, "what are your plans today?" She didn't even look up. "Same as usual. Work, gym, errands." "Gym." I almost laughed. I nodded slowly. "Gotcha. You meeting up with Daniel?" The way she froze told me everything. She covered it quickly, eyes flicking up, lips curling into an amused smile. "Oh my God. Again with Daniel? Do you need to meet him or something?" I tilted my head, studying her. "I already have." Silence. A crack in the performance. Tiny but there. Her smile faltered. "What?" I took out my phone, placed it on the table between us, unlocked it, opened the photo gallery, and turned the screen toward her. The motel. Her car. Room 214. Daniel. Her eyes flicked across the pictures, her face draining of color. Her breath hitched just slightly, not enough for most people to notice. But I did. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "So let's try this again. What are your plans today?" Ashley swallowed, staring at the screen. Then she let out a sharp, breathy laugh. Not real laughter. "Oh my God," she said, shaking her head. "Are you following me now?" I said nothing. She exhaled sharply, running a hand through her hair. "This is insane. This is not what it looks like." I almost applauded. The sheer audacity. The commitment to the lie even now, with evidence right in front of her face. "Not what it looks like?" I repeated slowly. "Ashley, you walked into a motel room with another man. Explain to me what that's supposed to look like." Her jaw tightened. "It's not what you think. We were just—" I laughed. Actually laughed. "Don't you dare say you were just talking." She went silent. Her mind was racing. I could see it, searching for the right angle, the way out, the way to turn this on me. I let the silence stretch, my pulse steady, my mind cold. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to argue. I was just going to let her destroy herself. Finally, she sighed, shaking her head. "Look," she said, her voice softer now, calmer. "I messed up, okay? But it's not like that." "Then tell me," I said. "What's it like?" She licked her lips, hesitating. "Then, I was lonely." I almost laughed again. There it was. The first card. The victim card. "I never meant for it to get this far," she continued, voice trembling just enough to sound genuine. "It was stupid. A mistake. I was just—" "How long?" I interrupted. She blinked. "What? How long?" A pause. A flicker in her eyes. Then she lied again. "Just a couple of weeks." I nodded slowly. "Try 3 months." The color drained from her face. She knew. She knew I had more than just these pictures. I let that sink in before I spoke again. "How many times?" Her eyes flicked away. How many times?" Another pause. A hesitation. She bit her lip like she was trying to calculate the safest answer. And then she finally muttered, "Only a few." I exhaled slowly. "Ashley." Her eyes flicked to mine. "You're really gonna sit there and lie to me? Even now?" She swallowed. Even now." My voice was steady, cold. "When I know everything?" She was unraveling now. The confidence was cracking. But she wasn't apologizing. She wasn't crying, begging for forgiveness, admitting anything. She was calculating. And that's when I realized. She wasn't upset because she cheated. She was upset because she got caught. I took a slow breath, let the weight of it settle. Then I stood up, grabbed my coffee, and turned away. Ashley sat there, still frozen, watching me. What are you doing? I didn't look at her. I'm going to work. You're seriously just walking away? Her voice rose, just slightly, like she was offended, like she couldn't believe I wasn't playing along in whatever script she had in her head. I turned back, finally meeting her eyes. Ashley, I said quietly, this marriage is over. You just don't know it yet. And then I walked out the door. Ashley blew up my phone all day. Calls, texts, voice messages. The first few were fake concern. Babe, come on, we need to talk. I know you're upset, but please don't just shut me out. This isn't fair. Then came the defensive ones. I can't believe you just walked away like that. Do you even care about this marriage? We can fix this if you stop acting crazy. By the afternoon, the anger kicked in. Wow, you're really being a child about this. You think you're so perfect? Maybe if you actually paid attention to me, this wouldn't have happened. That one almost made me laugh. Textbook cheater logic. But I didn't respond. Not once. Because Ashley still didn't get it. She thought this was fixable. That she could talk her way out of it. Twist the blame, make it my fault, or guilt me into letting it slide. She had no idea that I had already called a lawyer. No idea that by the time she got home tonight, she wouldn't be walking into our house. She'd be walking into the consequences of everything she did. So I waited. And at 6:12 p.m., Ashley walked through the door. She looked tired, tense, probably from spending all day trying to figure out how to spin this in her favor. But the second she saw me sitting on the couch, calm, waiting, she hesitated. I didn't say anything. I just gestured to the papers on the table. Her eyes flicked down, froze. What is this? Divorce papers. A long, heavy silence. Her fingers twitched. Are you serious? I nodded. She let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. Oh my God. You're actually insane. I stayed quiet. You're really doing this? Over a mistake. I tilted my head. A mistake? Ashley, you had a whole system for cheating on me. You had routines. You had lies ready to go. This wasn't a mistake. This was a second life. She crossed her arms. So that's it? You're not even going to talk to me about it. I exhaled slowly. Talk to you? Ashley, I gave you a chance to tell the truth this morning, and you lied to my face. You only admitted what I already knew. If I hadn't caught you, would you have ever stopped? Silence. That was my answer. Her jaw clenched. Wow, she said bitterly. So 5 years together. And you're just gonna throw it all away? I laughed under my breath. I threw it away? Ashley, you burned it to the ground. You threw it away every time you texted him. Every time you snuck off. Every time you walked into that motel room. She swallowed hard, but I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't sad. She was angry, because in her mind, she was still supposed to be in control. You don't even want to work through this? She snapped. Would you forgive me if I had done this to you? I asked, watching her. Silence. That was my answer again. I leaned back, letting it settle. You're going to sign those papers, Ashley. And I'll tell you exactly why. I pulled out my phone, opened my messages, and turned the screen to face her. Daniel's name. The texts I sent him earlier today. The screenshots I sent him of the motel photos. Her face drained of color. I sent him everything, I said quietly. So if you think there's a future with him, you're wrong. You don't have me and you don't have him. You have nothing. She panicked then. I saw it happen. The first real emotion on her face all day. You, she started, voice shaky. You had no right to do that. I smiled. Neither did you. I stood up. I was done. She just stood there, fists clenched, eyes wet. Not from regret, but from losing. I'm staying at a hotel tonight, I told her. Sign the papers. Have your stuff out by the weekend. And with that, I walked past her, grabbed my bag, and left without looking back. Ashley didn't text me that night, or the next day. I expected her to try one last desperate attempt, one last performance. But I think, deep down, she knew there was nothing left to say. When I came back on Sunday to check the house, she was gone. So was half the furniture. A few things from the kitchen. Some towels. Nothing big, nothing that mattered. But the house felt empty in a way I hadn't expected. I stood there in the doorway for a while, staring at the space where our life had been, where I used to come home, exhausted but happy, knowing she'd be waiting for me, where we used to laugh over stupid things, where I once felt safe. Now it was just a house. I walked through it slowly, room by room, not because I missed her, but because I was letting go of the lie I had been living. In the bedroom, I found her ring, left on the dresser. It was funny. I had spent days imagining what this moment would feel like. The confrontation, the aftermath, the destruction. But now, standing there, looking at that ring, I felt nothing. No sadness, no anger, no regret. Because in the end, I didn't lose a wife. I lost a liar. And for the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt free. So I picked up the ring, turned it over in my fingers one last time, then tossed it in a drawer and walked out of that house for good.